One of us froze on our internet. I don't know if you can
Yeah.
still hear or see me,
Yeah.
but
Welcome to the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. I am Joey Calvo. Today I have Don Galade. He is a international best-selling author, Christian filmmaker, financial advisor, and he's going to explain to us how he got to where he's at, and maybe give us advice of what we could do, and maybe look at it in a Christian type form. Um, so, Don, explain to us how you got to where you're at right now.
sure. Well, I've had 58 rotations around the sun. So around when I was 20, I think I started in the financial services industry. I've always been a musician and an amateur filmmaker. So my dad actually worked with Patsy Cline. So for some of the
Wow.
older folks online, they remember her. So yeah, Dad's 93 right now. So anyway, the um, the books kind of came about almost. Initially, it was just almost like a joke. I believe, I started, feeling the urge to write, and I just started typing and didn't think anything of it. And then the first one was "In God We Trust, the Dollar We Worship," and it was interesting because I learned as I was writing it how much God speaks about money. He actually speaks about money more than heaven, hell, and salvation, which is pretty interesting. Because all day long I deal with people's finances. Whether it's retiring or investing and saving, etc. So I found that pretty interesting when I learned that. My second book was Five Steps, which was a kind of a how-to book for somebody who has, they just have questions about, look, I want to start, or I need to, consider doing some in-depth financial planning. What are the key things I need to look at? And how do I find the right advisor? And my latest book, which is called Awoken, and it was a spoof off of the word woke, like every day everybody's woke today. And it actually turned into everything you're not supposed to talk about at a Thanksgiving dinner: politics, the Bible, finances, family. And it kind of shows how they all weave together. All of those topics technically do coexist in the same realm. And that I released it last December, and it became a bestseller in 12 days. So that's way above my pay grade.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, getting back to, you also host a podcast as well,
Right.
and talk about that.
Well, my podcast is called Money Matters. And unlike esteemed guests or hosts like you, I'm new to the podcast scene. So it's so far, it's just been republishing things that I've been blessed to be on other people's show. And also some things I've done on my
Yep.
own, because I haven't done anything where I'm hosting it yet, because I've only been doing podcasts for a couple of months.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So, so one thing, as I was looking at your bio here, um, was about, what if proof existed that all secret societies are like the Illuminati? I get a lot of emails about the Illuminati.
Well, the first thing is, our viewers would have to at least agree that the Bible is real, and that what is written in the Bible is indeed the Word of God. And for those that would agree to that, if they go back to the book of Revelation, and I've been doing an intense study on the book of Revelation for about 10 years, still would not consider myself an expert by any means.
Yeah.
But what I found, and this is what was the what spawned on the book Awoken, was in the book of Revelation, it speaks of a one world government, it speaks of a one world currency, and it speaks of a one world leader. Now, if you go into the news as of the last year, You hear about BRICS and Fed Now and the International Monetary Fund and the World Health Organization, the smart cities, all of these vernacular that have been thrown around from these global existing organizations that seemingly want to have control over the entire world. Now, a lot of that is steeped into conspiracy. There's some that'll say, "Oh, wow, that's just a conspiracy theory." I'm of the age where the Kennedy conspiracy theory was probably the first that I've ever heard of that term, and we find out now that a lot of what they tried to hide in the Kennedy conspiracy theory is indeed true. We're hearing that right from Robert Kennedy Jr. himself. So what happens is the powers that be that do not want to let the truth out brand us with these names. You're a racist. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're an elitist. Whatever the ist they want to use. And ultimately, when you start to pull apart all of these secret societies, you start to see a common thread between them. That we can at least all agree that there's good and evil, and these secret societies are not promoting good. Okay, so whether they do exist, well, we all kind of know they do. The proof, well, I don't think we have enough time in your podcast to go through it. I outlined some of it, in the book, but ultimately we see that in the book of Revelation, where it's inherently evil, we can tie those concepts into a lot of these secret societies that we see today.
Okay. So, okay. Um, so also you mentioned about uh, the statement that you made. There will come a descendant of Muhammad who will be loved by the entire world. Even the elect will view him as peaceful, charismatic world leader. Initially, he arrives on a white horse. The Sunni Muslims will know him as the Muslim Christ. The Shiite Muslims will know him as the Mahdi. Christians know him as the Antichrist.
Right.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
I can. This could be a 4-hour teaching. Okay, it's really, really, really intense, but at the same time, I'll try to simplify it. In the book of Revelation, it does indeed speak of this person who is going to come about called the Antichrist, and ultimately, with the Antichrist, we do know that he will indeed be the main source of evil upon the end of time, according to the book of Revelation. Now, in Revelation, there is how do I want to say this, and I want to choose my words carefully. In the Muslim sect, there are two branches. You have the Sunni and the Shiites, and they believe quite different things in some instances. And they too believe that Jesus existed. They too believe that there will be a one world leader, and their one world leader will arrive on a white horse. Their one world leader they'll refer to him as the Mahdi or the Mahdi. And if I'm pronouncing that wrong, I apologize. I don't mean any disrespect. But in our meaning the Christian religion, we view that same person, their Mahdi, will indeed be the Antichrist, because they're going to view that person as their savior. Now, in Revelation, it speaks of this period of time called the tribulation, which is a 7-year period. And initially, there's 3.5 years of peace. And the Antichrist does bring about this peace for 3.5 years. And then this treaty that's signed for world peace is broken. And the last 3.5 years are pretty treacherous. So if we once again take, I don't want to say that everything that's happening in the news is justifying the Bible in real time, but we would at least have to admit it's in the right. It's a season. It's the birth pains of a tribulation, if it's not necessarily relatively close.
Okay. I mean, if we look at the Ukrainian war, we could say that could be that, because it's going on 2 years that's been going on right now. would you think that be that 3.5 year?
No,
No.
no, we are definitely not in the tribulation period yet.
Okay.
There's a lot of Bible verses we'd have to go through to show that, but we are definitely not in that period yet. I do think that it does talk that in the end, before it's all over, the entire world will be against Israel. All of the nations of the world will be against Israel, and we could see that currently. And I think what the Ukraine war was brought to the forefront is, Palestinian marches all around the world against Israel. Now, I actually was in Israel 2 years ago. I walked along the same pieces of land that Jesus walked on, and I spoke to a lot of Israelis and as lot as Muslims and as lot as Palestinian folks, and got a lot of this data firsthand from their culture. Okay, and there's an armada of ships from all of these countries. They're all in the Middle East right now, and there's probably a bigger presence of firepower in the Middle East than there was in World War II. So I don't think they're all there. In my humble, uneducated military opinion, I don't think they're all there for a religious battle. There's every country has some of their best weapons parked there. So it's we would have to at least agree that we're on red alert there, worldwide.
Okay. All right. So you in 2011 you started GFS Financial Advisors. Now, in 2014 you started Kingdom Financial Ministries.
Right.
Can you explain the difference between the two companies?
Sure. Prior to 2011, I just worked for other financial institutions, and I started my own individualized entity at that point. And then a few years later, I realized that there's mutual funds, stocks, and bonds and such that people can invest in, that those companies per se take the resources they receive and they, as a company, sow into things that might not be considered biblically responsible for somebody who's a Christian. For example, there could be a company that supports Planned Parenthood. There could be a company that supports organizations that are involved in human trafficking. There's a lot of things that God would say, yeah, that's not a good thing, that some of these companies actually support. So I found that there is a host of investments that people can put their money into that do not support those types of activities and those types of sinful natured items, if you will. And a lot of these stocks, bonds, and mutual funds have some decent returns and have some of the same risk exposure as those that are supporting the things that a Christian wouldn't agree in. So Kingdom Financial Ministries is it's another financial advising firm, but its goal is totally separate from GFS Financial Advisors, in as much as the products that are sold are different. They're still stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc., but they're what the companies base their investments upon are biblically responsible, as the acronym. The easiest way to say is that there's ESG, which is a lot of people know of. Well, BRI, biblical responsible investing, would be the opposite of ESG.
Okay, we lost the last little part of you because you got muted somehow.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
internet's a little goofy where I'm at. You have ESG. There's that acronym that's used by a lot of the globalists as far as how people invest. Biblical responsible investing, or BRI, that would be like the rival or the opposite of. So you could say, listen, I'm going to invest in things that I don't really care what they do with their money. That would be the ESG realm. I care about what these people invest in because they're sowing into things that I find to be against the word of God. So that would be the BRI.
Okay. Okay. And another thing that you had done was you are also a filmmaker.
Yeah,
Explain a little bit about that.
sure. Um, my oldest child is 28. He's a pastor at a local church, and when my wife was pregnant with him, it was our first, and we were really naive in a lot of areas, as most young parents are. But we were in church and we saw this little cartoon caricature that explains how a partial birth abortion takes place. And I was like, this is crazy. I didn't know this was a thing. And we started to look for a pro life group to join, just to, how can we help? How can we, spread truth? And along the lines, we started running trips to Washington, D.C. for the March for Life every year. And 25 years into that, some friends of mine who are also in a Christian band, and we also have done some other film products for our Christian band. We said, we should make a documentary about the March for Life. Well, it spawned into really a topic of there's this woman who is a really good friend of mine who also ran an organization called Pennsylvanians for Human Life. And Mary Ann's story was she was a young nurse in 1976. And in West Virginia, she stumbled across a baby on what was called the dirty utility table. It was where they would just, put things that have to be cleaned. And this baby was still alive. It was actually a botched abortion. And
Mm.
Mary Ann, being Catholic, she held the child and she said, I baptize you and I name you John, and I will tell the world your story. Well, 40 years later, ironically, 40 is a big number with God. 40 years later, we managed to make the film. So the film's called The Voice of John. And if you go to thevoiceofjohn.org, you can actually watch it for free right off the website. And it actually is, we tried to make it like a womb to tomb kind of thing about the sanctity of life. So there's a lot of folks that actually we were blessed that were part of this film. Perry Stone, who's a great evangelist, Father Frank Pavone, who is a great priest for the human, the unborn. The year was Dr. Alveda King. We got an interview with Mike Huckabee, and these people are way above my pay grade. We just actually stumbled across them at some of these pro-life rallies that we were at, and we were just converting hotel rooms into sets, and filming. So it was shoestring budget, but we got the message out, and I believe. I was told, I haven't, I have it from a really good source, that the entire United States Congress, both Senate and the House, saw the first 5 minutes of this film in a joint session. Somebody brought it to the forefront, and they actually saw the first 5 minutes of it, which pretty much sets the theme for the whole movie. So
Yeah.
that was pretty exciting. So if nothing else, we planted some seeds, hopefully, for those that might feel like the sanctity of life is not important.
Okay. I've run out of questions already. um, being, and I try to extend it out as much as I can, but
Sure.
I mean, so much information. Um, Before I have you promote all your financial business, the again repeating the all everything about you.
Mhm.
If someone decided to come to you and decide to invest, what's the best advice that you could give them right now?
Okay. That's kind of what I wrote about in my book, The Five Steps. Um, when people start to invest, the first thing is you got to find an advisor that is truly an advisor. And what I mean by that is there's three types of people that would sell products, and ultimately at the end of the day we sell things, right? So you have
Mm-hmm.
like an insurance person who pretty much just sells life insurance and annuities, and they'll call themselves an advisor. You have stockbrokers who pretty much do almost everything you would see on Wall Street. They call themselves an advisor. And then you have the third round, which is the category I fit into, where my firm is called a registered investment advisory firm, RIA. And what RIA means is you're truly independent as far as, I don't work for, Fidelity, I don't work for Vanguard, but I can sell their products. I don't work for Prudential. I don't work for Metropolitan, but I could sell their products. And an RIA firm, the person who's in charge, the person meeting with the public, is what's called a fiduciary, which means I, at all times, have to keep that person, that client's needs above my own. So, and generally, the fees are somewhat less in that realm. So that's number one: is find the right advisor. Number one. Number two, the problem that most people have is they'll think, oh my God, the market's on fire. I got to throw money at it. Well, you should have threw money at it when it was low, okay? But people have a tendency to wait, and when it's really high, they throw money at it, and then it tanks, and then they pull the money out. So it's the opposite. So number one, you have to be disciplined on what you're putting your money into and when. And most importantly is understand your risk tolerance. For example, if somebody's 18 years old, they got a lot of time before they're going to need this money, if it is indeed reserved for retirement. But if somebody says 65 and they're going to retire next year, they shouldn't have a lot of risk. And what happens is when the market is on fire, people have a tendency to say, oh my gosh, it's never going to end. I'm going to just let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. And then it tanks. And then the person goes from 100,000 down to 60,000 overnight. Not really overnight, but understanding your risk that you have, understanding how much risk you're willing to take, and understand how much that plays into your entire package, into your entire portfolio, is really important. So if you have the right advisor who's educated and who can school you in what you should be in, that they are independent so they can offer you whatever products are best suitable for you in your age and in your goals and your dreams and with your risk tolerance, and then you have something that you're not getting killed in fees, so that the fees aren't gobbling up whatever money that you are trying to make. So I know I just said a mouthful, but a lot of that is in the 5 Steps book that somebody can just look into. Now, of course, there's licensing, there's jurisdiction. Most advisors aren't licensed in all 50 states, so you have to make sure the person you're talking to has the right licenses in the state that you're in.
Okay, all right. So, where can we reach you if we decided if we have questions about finances, or if we have even Christian type questions,
Sure.
or we want to hear about hear more about your podcasts, and so on.
Okay. My marketing website for all media is just my name, Don Galade. So it's DonGalade.com. And there's links on that to go to all of the other media from the books and such. My financial planning website is gfs-advisors.com. And the biblical responsible investing is Kingdom Financial Ministries, plural.com. And now, obviously, I don't claim to know the answer to every single thing, but if somebody has a question I can't answer, I know how to, find people who do know. And on the financial end, with the disclaimer that, of course, if somebody calls and has a question about some products or things, it's indigenous to their particular state. So I may have to refer them to somebody else in their state if I'm not licensed in that state. But if we're talking generalities, that's no big deal at all. But then the Voice of John film is thevoiceofjohn.org. You can watch that there. They can also watch it off of Amazon. I think you can rent it off Amazon, but you can watch it for free at thevoiceofjohn.org. So free's better.
Okay. All right. Well, Don, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm sorry I kept this short. I mean, like I said, if I had more questions, I'd throw them at you. If
you think about it, give me a call, Joey.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much, Don, for being a guest. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. I am Joey Calvo. God bless you all. Take care.
Thank you.